Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Citizens of Lorcana podcast, a podcast where we invite you to be a part of their world. Today, we are talking about the new set, Archazia's Island. Some of the decks we're excited to try out, some of the cards we're excited for. So, without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Hey, everyone, welcome to another week, and happy Archazia's Island release day. As of this recording, Friday is the day it drops. James, what are your plans for release day / weekend?
Let's see. I am going to go to downtown Disney again, even though there's really no need to, but it's kind of like tradition at this point. So
Yeah.
I'll stop in there on my way to work and pick up like a trove and maybe a Lilo gift set or something like that. And then head to work. And then on Saturday, I've got a sealed event at one store. And then Monday, I've got another sealed event at Kingslayer. So going to head
You are,
to two sealeds.
you're so bougie. You're so bougie. I'm going to go to downtown Disney. Anyway, so last week we talked about the cards we felt would be most impactful from the set. So if you haven't had a chance to listen, make sure to go check it out. And this week we are excited to talk about set 7, and we are also excited to have on one of our longtime supporters, Thomas, aka Martin Karp. So Thomas, welcome to the episode.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, we're really excited. I mean, I think you have been in our Discord from day one, but I don't think it's just our Discord. I'm pretty sure you're in just about every single Lorcana Discord there is out there.
Yeah, off and on. Like I was in the Podcana one for a while and the Forbidden Mountain one, and I left because I really wasn't contributing to anything. So I got tired of seeing the little highlighted buttons at the top of my screen when I got on Discord. But no disrespect to anybody in those communities. It just wasn't contributing.
Well, I think you probably contribute about 50% of all the discourse in our Discord. So thank you for that. Okay, so for those of you who don't know Martin Karp, he is one of those people. This is just my take, okay? That you are one of these people who's always active in the community. Maybe you don't have like the biggest following on Twitter or whatever, but you are one of the biggest characters like in the community, because you're always there, you're always welcoming, you're always commenting, and you're always in on the discussion when there's one to be had. So why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself to the Citizens of Lorcana community?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I go by Martin Karp. I first started playing TCGs. I started pretty much with Yu-Gi-Oh. I collected Pokemon when I was a kid. But I think I'm one of the rare few that started with Yu-Gi-Oh and then jumped to Lorcana. Um, I played competitive Yu-Gi-Oh for about 10 years. I got my wife into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, and then in turn she got me into Lorcana. Um, and I like rogue decks most of the time. And yeah, so I mean, like I had a little bit of success in Yu-Gi-Oh. I did the regional circuit, which is is a step above set champs for us and a step lower than our DLCs. Um, Never got to a DLC, never got to like our nationals or whatever. I got one regional invite after playing for like 10 years, and now after COVID, I just decided to hang up Yu-Gi-Oh. And then when Lorcana came out, the wife was like, "Oh, I'm gonna play," and I was like, "I'm not playing until Nightmare Before Christmas comes out, and you can't convince me otherwise." And then she found out about the Disney pins and was like, "Well, I'm in nursing school, so somebody in the house has to go play Lorcana," and that's how I got roped in. So since then, I've honestly been in love with the game, and I love it more than I probably ever have Yu-Gi-Oh. But nobody tell Konami because I don't want to get in trouble.
So, okay, well, I'm just curious now. Compare and contrast Yu-Gi-Oh versus Lorcana, your experience in both. Why would you say that Lorcana is probably more enjoyable for you?
A lot of it just has to do with one, the community. The Yu-Gi-Oh community, with one of my first competitive events was a locals, and I got ripped off. I was like in my early 20s, and there was a card that had just come out. It was like $60, and I didn't know any better. And the guy I traded with was like he was a longtime Yu-Gi-Oh player. And I like trying to talk to my friends who had been playing the game longer than I had, and nobody was like paying attention. And I ended up making the trade. And after I made the trade, it was like, you got ripped off. And I haven't seen that happen in Lorcana, at least in my experience. And as far as gameplay goes, it's got to a point in Yu-Gi-Oh where one, everything was so expensive. I think when Ed won Texas, I think the cheapest meta deck in Yu-Gi-Oh is, I think it was a tier one format, but it was $1,000. Lowest rarity. Yeah. Um, and I think Ed won with his Ruby Amethyst list. And I did a price comparison just out of my own curiosity. And lowest rarity for Ed's deck was 200 ish, like 250 at the time. So again, like price point, and Yu-Gi-Oh just got to a point where it was very fast. So I kind of like the very slow gameplay that Lorcana has. Even though sometimes I want to bang my head into the wall when I'm playing against songs because I think that mechanic's really dumb. Sorry, really bad for the game. But I digress. But yeah, so it's just it's a lot of things, but mostly it was the price point and the community as a whole
Yeah.
that I really enjoyed.
Okay. And before we move on, I have a beef with you.
Uh-oh.
As listeners have probably noticed, your nickname is Martin Carp.
Yep.
And as we all know, the mascot for Citizens of Lorcana is Flounder. So, okay, here's the thing though. When I played Pokemon, I played the original Red and Blue. Yes, I did love Magikarp because it's this cool little Pokemon that turns into this giant dragon. But I mean, over here in Lorcana, it's Flounder Supremacy. So I hereby motion for you to change your name to Martin Flounder.
Uh, let me oof. Let me think on that. The best I could probably do compromise wise is like something like a flounder carp. Um,
Ooh, there you go. There you go.
okay, I think we can compromise on flounder carp.
Flounder Carp. Yeah.
Okay,
But I mean, you do have to agree. I mean, if Flounder and Magikarp were to go head to head, all Magikarp can do is jump and splash. I've heard the song, Jump and Splash.
I've never
The
heard
weak
that.
Pokemon. I mean, it has its own very song. Flounder doesn't have a song about how weak he is, okay? He trapped a freaking shark and then he stuck his tongue out at it. So there we go. The debate's been settled.
Okay, I'll give it to you tonight. It is your show. Um,
He'll
but
change it for like an
yeah,
hour.
yeah, right, yeah. When is we got April Fools in less than a month? Maybe it'll be then.
There you go.
There you go. Change your name to Flounder Carp on April Fools.
Yep.
That would be
Yeah,
hilarious.
exactly.
All right. So let's get this back on track. So when Jared was setting up, getting you on here and getting you to record with us, um, you said that you were dying to talk about some things, and so you sound like a good guy. Jared says you're a good guy, but apparently there's a villain arc that you've had in Lorcana. So why don't you let us know about that?
Yeah, so we were, I think it was the week before Atlanta, me and some teammates or playtesting partners or whatever you want to call it. We're not an official team. Excuse me. Um, we went down to a two case in Kissimmee, so like right outside Orlando, and we get to the final rounds before Top Cut. It was a winning in for me and two other teammates. Um, I ended up taking a uh, I ended up taking a bribe. That's the best way to put it. The guy that I played was like, "Hey," he's like, "if you give me the W and he's like, I can get it in." He's like, "I can get in." He's like, "I'll split my price, whatever price support we get with you, 50-50." It was best of two format, and I was like, "I don't know," and I kind of went back and forth. I was like, "Well, my buddy to my right." I was like, I'm worried about him not getting in. He's like, no, 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 you hook it in. I promise, I promise. So I took the bribe. I took half my, and after I walked up to my teammates, I was like, yeah, man, like, I gave the guy the dub, but I'm getting half his prize support. That's that's really what happened. And I've been dubbed by our team as the Judas of the group because I turned my back on my friend. So if I can, I want to give him a shout out. My buddy Terrence or Afro Man on Melee. If you ever run into him at a DLC, great guy, has been super chill about it. But I told him, I was like, hey, I was like, if it's cool with you, I was like, I'm gonna tell the story on the pod, and we're gonna. To his credit, he was like, we're good. He was like, he hasn't really held it against me, but I do still get some flack from it from time to time. Just you know, and I deserve it. I really do.
That's
But
funny.
my wife pulled, yeah, my wife pulled Enchanted out of our half of the box. And I guess that added a little bit of salt to the wound. It was an Ariel's Grotto, so
There's
not the best.
there's your 30 pieces of silver right there. That enchanted.
Exactly. That was where the Judas moniker came from. Is I got my 30 pieces of silver, but at what cost? Um,
All right, man. So one of the other things you mentioned was something about a bulk project. So are you hitting the gym? Are you chugging protein shakes, or is this more about like collecting excess cards for some purpose?
the latter. It's a well-known joke in my friend group that I don't run, period. So when my wife and I are in the parks and she starts running, I'm just like, I'll catch up. I've got long legs. Um, so I talked to Brad from Rules of Villainy about this because I think him and his fiance went to Disney recently. And I was giving him a little sass about not taking bulk. And I forget how fortunate I am because I'm 2 hours away from the parks. So my wife and I go whenever we have time. We go pretty consistently. Um, and I started giving bulk out to cast members and guests at the park. Um, it's just something like at the time, I think it started right after Inklings came out, and nobody had heard of Lorcana. And I can do a better job than what Disney's doing right now about this. Um, so since then, it's been any park trip. I've got a binder full of bulk, and my wife and I are pin traders, so it's a little bit more organic than me just running up with this caveman beard and just throwing cards at people. Um, but yeah, that's what we do. I like I
How has it been received? Tell us one of these stories.
So I've actually gotten recognized by cast members, which is really cool. Because my wife, a couple of times have been asked by cast members, like, are you a cast member? Because like she loves Disney, she'll Disney about it and stuff. Um, and for a little bit, she was like, oh yeah, one day they'll recognize you. And I've had like 4 or 5 cast members just recognize me by pulling out the binder, and they're like, oh, you're the Lorcana guy, and I go, I am the Lorcana guy. Um, so it's really really fun. And at one point I thought about filming it for content, and then I was like, no, this is not what this is about. And I talked about it on the Discord. One of our most recent trips, we gave out like 2 starter decks to cast members, and they were like, well, you're doing pixie dust for us, so we're gonna do some pixie dust for you. And it took me about 10 minutes to accept 2 lightning lane passes. To any Yeah, the customer was like, you're hooking us up, we're gonna hook you up. And I was like, wait, what?
All
And
right.
they were like, yeah, they were like, we're not taking no for an option, like this is unacceptable, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was very put on the spot. Yeah, but I mean, it's been a great opportunity to tell people about Lorcana and share the game with everybody who may not hear about it. I had a cast member ask when I showed them the binder, they were like, "Is this Pokemon Lorcana that I've heard about?" Or like I think they said Disney Pokemon. That's what they said. There was a Disney Pokemon because I guess some kid asked them where to find it. Uh, which apparently they're trying to get it in the parks because right now it's only in the springs.
That's
There's a
weird
bunch.
because it is in Disneyland already. It's in multiple shops at Disneyland.
So I think, and this is
Because
just kind of
Disneyland's better.
Yeah, well, we knew that.
focuses more, and this is something my wife and I have talked about because like in Disneyland you get the Haunted Mansion gets the Nightmare Before Christmas layover every year. World doesn't. Um, so I think they try to make Disney World more like focused for the world travelers, not just the locals. So I think maybe that's why Lorcana hasn't hit the Disney like parks yet in Disney World. Um, but they need to. It's time. Like they finally put up the little placard on the buses that's like Lorcana and it's Baymax, and I'm like, oh, like I play that game. Um, but they've got to start something. Like I don't know what, but I
I'm
would
sure
love
they
to.
got something up their sleeve.
Yeah, the
Uh,
advertising has been a bit lackluster to date.
from what I heard from I want to say it was Mike and Edmund when I ran into them at Epcot. Like they've got stuff in the works. It's just red tape's keeping them at bay. And that's all I was told. Um,
That- that's
so
that's the story I get on a lot of things. Is like there everything's got to run through Disney approvals. So
yeah,
and
yeah. And I didn't. Oh, sorry.
no, it's just saying. So everything takes time. Everything.
Yeah, I didn't believe it. I was like, oh, that's yeah. I was like, whatever. Like that's not real. And then I heard it from their mouths, and I was like, okay, maybe maybe this is legit. Um, I firmly believe Worlds is going to be sometime in May. Just because like I think that's the break between all the festivals and whatnot on at Disney World, and cast members work overtime for like any of those events, like the Halloween parties, the Christmas parties, the festivals and stuff. So I think it's just them trying to find a break in the hectic schedule of it all to.
That is what I heard as well in Anaheim. I talked to a guy who works for Disney. He's like the head of their events. And he's like, I think they're just trying to figure out a weekend that doesn't have like 15 different conventions going on, among
Yeah,
other things. So it's like they're just trying to find space. But who
yeah.
knows?
I think at one point, back when Live Laugh Lorcana was up and running, I think somebody had mentioned how cool it would be to have cast members be like actual it might have been having PPG staff like directing people at, like for the parks and stuff. I was like, there's no way you can do that. Or it might have been to have the cast members like be judges for Lorcana. Excuse me. Ooh. At the time, I was like, there's no way. Like that's too hectic. So honestly, who knows? But I'm hoping it's soon because, like I said, I'm 2 hours down the road, so I'm gonna be there as long as I can get that PTO in.
Yep. Yep. Be nice for them to let us know.
I think they'll let us know. I think we'll give at least a 2 months heads up. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah,
May's in 2 months.
I know.
it, so it'll be interesting for sure. I think them having it on property kind of like pigeonholed stuff. Konami did Yu-Gi-Oh! Worlds at a some hotel in convention center in 2016. I mean, it was packed. Like it was a probably one of my it was probably one of my favorite moments that entire weekend for different reasons. But yeah, so I mean, it'll be a fun time, but we definitely need to get those dates out there. I feel bad for the European players who don't have that information yet.
All right. So I'm gonna sidetrack a bit. I think a comment you made earlier about songs and how you think that they're not great for the game.
Yeah.
No, we're not gonna get really too deep into that, but do you feel like the songs we got in the first two sets are just way more powerful than any song we've gotten since, really? And that they maybe noticed, maybe they figured out after they started playtesting into the more stuff, and they're like, wait a second, we need to put the brakes on songs because I don't think we've really gotten some really powerful songs.
I was gonna say I don't think so, honestly. Um, because all the ones that I can think of right now, like Whole New World, Let the Storm Rage On, Strength of Raging Fire, I think those are like the first two sets.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think they might have. Was it Ryan Miller on your podcast that so I think this was a while ago if it was mentioned it like Maui like sometimes you got to have like the broken cards in circulation to keep the game
I think
interesting.
that was Steve, where he's like,
Oh,
sometimes
Steve.
you got to push
Yeah.
some cards and have them be just a little overpowered just to have that spice in the set.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that the songs have gotten a lot. I think they've gotten a lot better, but just like the mechanic of it all, sometimes it's kind of like I just kind of get. I don't know. Sometimes it's just like I feel like it helps keep like the slower non-meta decks out of the format, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because like it's coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, we have like I won't even say similar, but we have cards that like let you do unfair things, and it kind of gives me that feel. Like I understand I heard Artifact say it, like when you sing a song, you're giving up that lore for the turn. So the songs have to be worth it. But at the same time, I don't know. Like maybe I'm just because I don't like steel songs as a deck for that reason, I guess. It's just I don't know. It's like to me, songs is just a weird mechanic, and I get the appeal of it, but at the same time, it's like all right, this seems a little too uh, not great, if that makes sense. I don't know.
I think that songs definitely have that aspect about them that are overpowered.
Yeah,
And therefore I think that's why they have kind of just settled into this. Songs are okay, and they're still powerful, but we're not going to give the power level to them that we would to like a Maui. Previously, we're not going to give songs powerful things to make them like double overpowered. So I think
Under the sea, that was in set one or
that's
two.
a sing together, and it's 8 costs. So I mean, it takes
Okay,
8
okay.
to get.
How far I'll go?
Yeah, that one's a bit. That one's a bit. That's probably the most powerful song in the recent sets. It's one of them.
Yeah, you're right. I can't think of a lot of songs off the top of my head.
All right.
yeah. I was gonna say, I don't have like a list in front of me.
It
Yeah,
just
I wonder.
feels
Yeah, I
like
wonder.
it just feels like songs haven't been very powerful for since set 2. Like
Yeah,
maybe one here or there, not like 4 that we had, 4 or 5% that we had in those sets. All right. Enough about that. Let's start talking about Arcasia's Island. This is what
yo,
for. That's what's coming out. When you hear this, that means Arcasia's Island is out. So I think I mean, we all hear it. The potential deck that's got everybody talking and banging their heads on the wall and or celebrating, depending on where you're coming from, is Ruby Sapphire. Is it going to live up to the hype or just be dominant for a week and two until everyone figures it out?
um, I think we'll see. Lorcana's like I think Lorcana's funny to me that way that like because I think at the start of last set it started out as a very dominant deck and then it kind of got edged out and then by the end of the format it was arguably the best deck of the format again. Um, so I think honestly it'll maybe carry the same flux. I think. So yeah, I mean I definitely think it'll be in the top three like it has been pretty much. But I think I think the Bell that everybody's focusing on, I think she'll definitely be better in Sapphire Steel than Ruby Sapphire for sure.
Yeah, I seem to have the same opinion as you. I think Ruby Sapphire, you're going to see a lot of it in the first couple of weeks, and then people will figure out, some suitable answers for it. But then, as the non-top player, such as myself, continue on throughout the set, I think you'll see the Ruby Sapphire like fade off. But the really good players, like the top of the top that are really good, they're just I could see Ruby Sapphire just dominating at the upper echelons of play.
It's really interesting to me because Ruby Sapphire, by all accounts, has been the top deck for 2 sets now.
It's true.
And yet it has not won the lion's share of major events. And I think that's what's interesting about the Lorcana meta is that we can have a top deck, but it's not, the big deck in format where it's like it just dominates the entire meta. So I think that's pretty interesting. I think it's possible we may see that change a little bit where it does dominate a bit more, but I do think that there will be answers because I think that there's a lot of spicy stuff in this set someone's gonna figure something out, right?
I don't know. I just see R&B on Twitter all the time talking about play testing with or against Ruby Sapphire. I saw a big Tamatoa banished with a human Sisu because of Sapphire Coil. Like, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. He is very high on Ruby Sapphire being busted.
Yeah, I think a lot of and nothing against like the more pro players because they're there for a reason. They're considered some of the best in the game for a reason. Um, but I think that like everybody kind of puts blinders on to what they perceive as the best cards of the format, or the like soon to be best cards of the format. Because like again, my coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, the games run very differently. So like you'll have like like over in Japan, we call it the OCG. It stands for the original card game. Um, they release sets like 3 to 6 months ahead of the US and like the Western world. So like the metagame is almost, I'd say 80% of the time is fairly predictable. So we know ahead of time what's going to be the best deck, what's going to be the best, this, that, and the other. Whereas in Lorcana, we don't have that. So I think the blinders of everybody going like, yes, I think Coil is an absolutely broken card, and it needs to join the short list of people like with the pitchforks going, this card needs a rat or this card needs a ban. Um, but I think maybe it is just a little overhyped in because I mean, like last set, nobody thought, or not a lot of people thought Genie was going to be as good as it was, or at least I didn't hear that at all from anybody. And that card ended up taking a huge chunk of the metagame. So well, I mean, we'll definitely have to see where the cards fall.
But
Long.
I liked the way that Heath phrased it on the last Overexerted, where he's like, "Yeah, the bell is the best card in the set, but it's also overhyped."
Yeah.
So both of those can be true. It can be way overhyped, but also be the best card, which I think it may be. Also, I think it's definitely a toss up between the bell and the coil. So
and it's just a common.
I know it's just a common. Every
That's
starter
a
deck has
cool
3 of
thing.
them. You buy a
Yeah.
starter deck and you just need to find one in a pack somewhere, and you're done.
Can we make Maui half shark common?
No.
I know. We have to have the money cards for the value of the game. I get it. I know. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of decks, what is the first deck that you are planning on running, Thomas? What are you
Um,
doing?
so I've been working on some fossil lists, honestly.
Say fossil?
Sorry, Fasa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, set one Mufasa, the flip, when he's banished, flip the thing. Um, my only two set championship like cards and one playmat have come from playing a Mufasa list. So I'm very high on that deck. Um, but if it doesn't work, I don't know. I might just go back to playing Blurple. I played Blurple for a while, like almost all of last set. Um, but if not, I don't know.
I
Well,
like Mufasa because you never know what's coming off the top. Like it's fun. It's so fun when that Maleficent dragon hits, and it's so sad when you get a Stitch new dog.
yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why I did so well at set champs is because nobody really knows how to play around it. Which, hey, I'll take the surprise factor any day of the week. But yeah, so it's something probably Mufasa related, and if I get off of Fasa, then it'll just be whatever I decide I think is good. I have no idea, honestly.
What about you, James? What are you gonna run?
I'm gonna go for the old Sapphire Emerald and try and make that work. There's about
Yeah.
18 different deck ideas and ways you can build those colors. So I'm trying to figure it out. I mean, talking with people at the weekly last week, we're all like, you can do this. Like, but what about this card? But you can do this. But you can play it this way. You can go aggro. You can go like discard. You can go control. You can do this. And it's like you can bring back cards that no one has been using at all and see if they work, like the Archer Bell, and see if you can make that work with those colors now that you have a 1-drop bell that you can get into play to shift that bell onto on turn 3.
And then you could shift the Baymax on top of it to healer and make her useful.
Triple
That too. I mean,
shift.
there's so many different things that you can do now with those colors. I think something has to come through in those colors that is tricky enough to just confound people when you play it.
All right. Well, let us know what you cook up.
Probably just gonna go
Yeah.
aggro first, probably. Just do aggro because at the beginning of the set, if you play aggro, everyone's like, "What?" and then they lose. So
Should I share what I'm building, James?
sure,
I shared the list with you.
yeah.
It's
I mean,
Ruby
you don't have-
Sapphire. However, it's not the Ruby Sapphire everybody's hating, okay?
yeah, it doesn't have any of the control cards in it.
This is an Oswald item deck. Has both Tamatoas in it, has Oswald, and So the idea is just to flood the board with items, build Tamatoa up, Lucky Diamond. I mean, there are multiple different ways to win, but it's been pretty fun to test out.
I was testing it. I was testing it earlier today, and on like turn was it the first time Oswald got the trigger? I think it was on like turn 3. Dime came out, and it's like from turn 3 on, being able to dime every turn if you wanted to is like crazy.
Because there's like 21 items in the deck, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
It's fun. It's not it's not going to be a tier 1 deck, but man, is it fun.
Yeah, I decided that's what I'm gonna go for.
You're
Like,
going to surprise people with it.
I'm never gonna be a top tier player, so I may as well have fun.
Exactly.
Well, who knows how fun it's gonna be when I lose all the time, right?
You won't lose all the time with that deck. You're going to surprise people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, come on, if you can get like if you can ramp a bit and then you have like 8 items out because you played like 5 of them for free off of Oswald's,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you just look, there's a Tomato and a dime, and boom, win on one turn.
Dude, 2 Oswalds out and ink and fishbone quill. So many items.
So many items.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. But as you know, I love Oswald, so I want an Oswald deck to work.
Got to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Archazia's Island introduces a pet themed set with characters from Bolt and Lady and the Tramp and the Aristocats. What do you think the focus on pets brings to the Lorcana universe, both in terms of storytelling and gameplay appeal?
Oof. I think it's just another way to, like, from the story, not even necessarily the storytelling, but the marketing is just to rope in like more beloved characters. I think I've had a couple cast members when I'm at the park still ask me like for specific, like Bolt hasn't been mentioned, but somebody asked me about Lady and the Tramp, and I was like, I can't do that for you yet, but it's coming. And then I offer them one of the many other cards that I have in my binder. So marketing, I think that's like really it. Storytelling, like I don't forgive me to anybody who's like deep into Lorcana lore because I'm not, but I don't. I, I'm not like I haven't found like a cohesive narrative yet. So I'm sure they're there, and I'm sure it'll be interesting enough.
The
But
narrative is taking over Jafar, next set. It's leading up to that. Archazia's this ancient Lumineer who's on this island, this pet paradise, and they're learning. I mean, I'm just saying, okay, there is a story there.
I mean, no, you're not wrong. I just mean like overall, like because like I can never remember if like Lorcana is supposed to be more of like a multiversal type thing or if it's like I like again there's a story there. I'm not deep into the story. I'm not knocking
Well,
anybody who is.
you're in luck because each pack now is going to come with a piece of story on one of the insert cards.
Puzzle pieces and story and lore cards, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's like 20 different cards now.
And two different puzzles.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
it's too much.
I sidetracked us from the question. I
No, you're
love
good.
pets. Like, who doesn't love? Okay, but come on. There's no flounder in this set. But who doesn't love pets?
Founder's not a pet.
Who doesn't love pets? Aristocats, that's one people have been talking about from the beginning, like before the game ever came out.
And I feel like Aristocats kind of got the low end of the stick here because almost all of them are just vanillas. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not wrong.
I was gonna say I think O'Malley has Ward, but everybody else is not. Like it's weird. But no, I think as far as gameplay wise, I mean, I think it's too early to tell where it is. Like, yeah, a lot of it is they're just vanillas. So I mean, there's nothing really interesting there to me, at least gameplay wise.
All right, well, how
But
about this? Sorry.
no, you're good. You're good.
The set's tagline is learn new tricks. So, how do you interpret this? Do you see it? Well, obviously it's a hint at the dual inks. But do you think that the tagline is a hint to the dual inks? Do you think it's a nod to the animal theme? Both, like how do you how do you see? Because I feel like learn new tricks. That was the first thing that they revealed to us. Arcasius Island, learn new tricks. So if there was one thing about this set that's like, okay, this is the new trick. Well, what do you think that is?
I want to say it's the Duel Links, because I think it's the first new mechanic we got since locations, and that was what, set 4.
It was a year ago, yeah. Set 3.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Hey, stop making me feel so old.
we got the alternate discard cost. I think it's set. Was that set 3 too? When did Diablo come out? Same set? I
Now,
think it was. I
Diablo
don't know.
was set 3? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Diablo and locations were on the same set. Yeah. So yeah, we haven't had anything new like anything. Yeah, any new game mechanic in over a year. Um. So I feel you though on the stop making me feel old bit. Um. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a pun, and then it's we got the new mechanics. So it's a very clever pun, but I think it's again just at the end of the day, it's I I think it's just very not very subtle, but it's like animal theme, have animal pun, profit.
Okay. Yep.
I
Yep.
would
I
have to
agree.
agree. Okay, so continuing the pet talk here, they're obviously a majority of this set and the star, but Disney has tons of animals, and so for future sets, which animals would you love to see get into Lorcana?
Nightmare Before Christmas, absolutely.
Zero?
Oh, I wanted Zero in this set so bad, even if it was just like, even if he was just like a little background character, just like Jacques, like you know, uh, who I think it's Brad. Brad wanted Jacques, and Jacques, and I wanted Zero. I think I told him at one point, I was like, you can have Jacques, if I can have Zero in the game. Um,
So you're the reason why we didn't get Jacques.
Yeah, it all makes sense. Sorry, Brad.
yeah,
You
apparently.
do realize he's the mayor, right? And he can kick you out of
We,
here.
we've had that discussion. He was like, I think I said we were gonna form a mayoral Lark,
Recall.
yeah, or something. I don't. It's been so long. But yeah, so if Brad wants to blame me for no Jacques, I'll blame him for no Zero. Um, we can blame each other.
What about
But
you, James? What pets would you like to see or animals?
Who would I like to see? Man, I don't know.
He's not really a pet, but
You know
Mr.
what? You know what?
Slinky.
I'm gonna go with what is considered to be the worst Walt Disney animation movie, and let's get some characters from Home on the Range in here.
Oh.
okay,
I, I was thinking like Fun and Fancy Free or something like that,
No,
but
no,
I
those
okay.
are classics.
I'm
No,
I'm with you.
but
Okay.
also, you know
Okay.
what? Speaking of classics, yeah, Fantasia animals.
Oh yeah.
Where's the ballet hippo
Oh
or
yeah.
whatever? You know, all those animals. Let's get some of those in here.
And for our boy Chappie, the dinosaurs from Dinosaur.
Yeah, dinosaur. Come on,
Yeah.
what's up?
they got rid of that traction.
All right. So, but yeah, I mean they have all sorts of different possibilities, but okay, so let's talk about this. This is the seventh set since Lorcana launched in August of 2023. How do you feel the game's evolution has been paced so far? I mean, you talked about how we haven't had really any new mechanics since the lands, the locations, sorry. But and here we are on set 7, so like a year later. Um, how do you feel about the progression? And does set 7 feel like it's furthering that progression?
I, I feel like the game's still going at a very healthy pace. I noticed personally like cards were getting power crept as early as like set 1 to 2 because we had Jumba in set 1, and then we had, I don't remember her name, the villain
Mira
from,
or
yeah,
Verana? Verana.
there you go. So like she like stat wise she power crept Jumba. So I mean there's been subtle power creep in the game, but I mean just as far as like the natural progression of the game, it seems fine. I mean again coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, like Lorcana's a lot slower, and the game's like the power creeping system has been a lot more balanced, I feel. Um, so I think the game's evolved at a decent pace over the last year. Um, and I think as long as they keep on this trajectory, there's certain cards that I think that they should, or I think if they can, because again, I think I heard it on like y'all's pod or somebody else's pod that the dev team only play tests the current set and the previous set. So like they only test set 7 and set 6. So I think that a lot of like these broken combos are falling through the cracks, if that's the case. So I think, but I guess that'll just come with in theory, that should just come with a longer dev cycle or a larger dev team, as it were. Um, but again, like I think the game's in a healthy spot. Um,
I'm pretty
so,
certain they said they tested like several sets in advance. Am I wrong, James?
No, they do. They test a few. Um,
but
the
do they test them together or do they test them separate?
they do they test them. I'm pretty sure they test them together. As they go. It's just that and Steve has mentioned it, the numbers. He's like, in the first like few hours of a set's release, more testing is done by, everyone playing
Players.
the game than they can do in the 3 months that they have to test it. With just the limited resources they have. So there's only so much testing, no matter what they do, that they can get done. And so things are going to slip through. But they did in the Discord live stream, they did mention that like they specifically did test like Sapphire Coil a lot, and they felt that it wasn't. Now, this may be like PR speak, where it's like it wasn't broken, but I mean, it may be the Maui of this set where it's like purposely pushing to just like add that spice into the set to cause things to go haywire.
Because if anybody needed it, it was Ruby Amethyst, right? I mean
Right?
Ruby Sapphire, right?
They only needed a way to make things have less strength, and also to make sure they had a card that stopped aggro, so they could get a nice big 3/3 body out on turn one. That's all they needed. And it's
Right.
like, oh wait, and they got it.
Okay,
The
so let me ask it this way: if somebody had played Lorcana in set one, and then they played set two, but like, oh, this is kind of boring, and they dropped off, okay, and then they came back in set seven, would the game be significantly different for them to be like re-engaging them, or do you think they'd be like, this hasn't really changed that much? Like, what do you guys think about that? I mean, James, you're nodding your head.
I mean, I think it definitely just depends on like where you come from TCG wise. Like I've had a couple Yu-Gi-Oh players from my local scene like make the jump to Lorcana and they've left because they feel the game's too slow. Now again, Yu-Gi-Oh, it's a very fast game. You can have a one game go 35 minutes, but it's very interactive. Like you have people playing cards on each other's turns, stuff like that. But I feel like the game has sped up from a Lorcana standpoint. But if you're coming from a game like Yu-Gi-Oh, like I mentioned, like you're gonna think the game's very slow. Which is why I think now if somebody were like, oh hey, what's different? I mean, I honestly think the meta changed enough between set two and set seven that if you were like, well, I didn't like playing as Ruby Amethyst, like, well, Ruby Amethyst, while it is consistent, is not the best deck of the format anymore. But I think by a large margin, and people can fight me about that. Um, so I definitely think that's what I would tell them is like try to figure out where they're coming from in terms of like where they stopped, like or why they stopped, and then try to explain it from there. And be more analytical, I guess, from that stance.
And
It's interesting to see if you're doing searches like on Twitter, and Twitter is now like the search is so annoying now because it is just covered in Japanese posts, so I can't read any of them.
it's
But
true.
you see them posting deck lists, and you're like, oh yeah, a set one deck list, and you're like, I remember that, and then you look at it, and you're like, the game has changed a lot. I mean, we're still using some of those cards from those decks, but you look and you mentioned the power creep. The power creep hasn't been, in my opinion, very significant. You mentioned the Jumba to the Verana. It's like that was like one stat different. Like
Yeah.
everything about the card was the same. It was like one number was different, like one higher. It's like big deal. Like over the course of 7 sets, and you have like a song that maybe costs one less than the previous song. or does something that has like one reduction of a cost, or more of a cost, like here and there. It's like all of those things seem like they're like they're just slow, very slow climbs of power creep instead of like this massive jump that you can get sometimes. And so looking at those old decks and looking at the new decks, I think that the progression has definitely been there, and the game definitely has sped up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me ask this a different way. So this was from the perspective of somebody that stopped playing and was starting again. What about the people like us who have been playing since set one? Is the game staying fresh enough to keep people engaged? Like, I think that's the progression that we're asking is the game staying the same, or is it introducing enough mechanics to keep people like, okay, this is still fun? Does that make sense?
No, it does. I think so. I think it depends on how you're playing the game. Like if you're playing it as a more like competitive, like hyper competitive player, it's definitely a lot. It definitely gets boring rather quickly. Like the last 2 weeks, my league on Wednesdays hasn't had. We haven't like it's no more pins or anything. So the last couple weeks, everybody's just been testing the new stuff. Because my locals is a very that locals particularly is a very hyper competitive locals. Another locals across town, they do the points, like the traditional points. So like people will change decks out mid tournament so that they can get all their points in. Um, I think at least on a casual level, the game is still there's still a wide variety of cards and movies and franchises and such that I I'm sure it could get boring, but if you're just playing like no ink restrictions at like the kitchen table or whatever, I think the game's definitely um like it. I think it's still appealing to a lot of players. Um, again, it's for me. It just goes back to like why did you stop? Where are you coming from? And like what is your intent for Lorcana? Because if you want to just play for funsies or Porcana or Street Rat or whatever you want to call it, like I feel like the game has a wide variety of options. Whereas competitive, it's a lot more cut and dry.
We played in the last few weeks since set champs 2v2. Uh, we played just this last week. The new term that I've heard and is now the one I will be using is lore common, so that it doesn't have any connotations to it at all.
I like
And
that.
um, because we didn't have enough to fire a full 2v2 one week, we played a 2v2v2. So it was a multiplayer 2v2.
That's
That was
fun.
an exciting game. That was awesome. That was a lot of fun. Um, but just things like that, I think, are helping to keep the game fresh for people who, like you said, who the ultra competitive. That's all they focus on. So, like I said, it gets boring. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it probably does get boring because they have to do the same thing 10,000 times. Um, but for casuals and people that are just wanting to have fun playing the game or be slightly competitive, these chances, like in between set champs and new set release, it's great time to have some fun playing some different formats and do some different things and use some cards you never got to use before. um and I think that's a great thing. I think that's the way Lorcana is built, I think, really helps with that, being IP based with the franchises and all that.
I have to say, when I was at NACC, I the only events I did was draft, and I had or seal, I had so much fun. I had so much fun. Like I, I'd done drafts in the past, but I enjoyed myself in a competitive scene like that way more doing drafts than I did doing the constructed.
It's new and different, right? It's something surprising every time. It's not exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. What do we want to talk about next? Okay. Let's talk about the release schedule. 4 sets a year. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people think it's too fast. Do you think 4 sets a year is enough to keep people engaged? Is it starting to feel overwhelming? What are your thoughts on 4 sets?
I think 4 sets is fine. again, coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, we would have like 4 main sets a year, and then we would get like, depending on the year, we'd probably get like 4 or 5 side sets. That always had some sort of meta relevant card in it. So again, the joys of having a different, your game originating in a different country, I guess. I'm okay with 4. Sometimes I wish like the again, going back to like the set, like the time between set champs and the new set, like that lull period. Sometimes it's like, well, I wish it was a little bit quicker, but I don't think anybody financially could afford that, or not many people. So yeah, I mean, 4 sets is fine for me. I think SWU does 3 a year, and I guess that seems to work okay for that game. But I think for Lorcana, 4 sets is
For
pretty
the
perfect.
for the uninitiated, SWU is Star Wars Unlimited.
The other Disney card game that we don't talk about.
I just wanted to make sure. I'd never heard it called that before.
That's what I think. I think me and everybody at my locals that like is involved with it just calls it SWU for whatever reason.
Because when you
But
initialize it, that's what it is. So you look at it, you
Yeah.
look at it on the Discord, and you're like, "Oh, that's SWU." You say it in your head, and then all of a sudden, it's what you say in real life, right?
yeah,
So I'm fine with the 4 sets a year. It does feel like it comes fast. I mean, it sometimes it feels like it's a never-ending conveyor belt of have to get another binder, have to get new sleeves, have to get uh whatever, have to get my pre-orders in, have to get new playmats. James has to get one of everything. Like, and it's just every 4 months, every 3 months, sorry. It can feel like a little overwhelming for me sometimes, but it is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, you can engage with the game how you want. If all you want is to have one meta relevant deck, then you can go on Dreamborn, find the deck that you want to play, test it out on Lorcana Inks, and just get those cards. Or if you want to collect 4 of every card, you can do that too. Like, the choice is yours. So
I agree.
all right, so back to this new set coming up. Are there any sleeper cards in this upcoming set or strategies you're hearing about that might surprise us? Because really, all we're hearing about are these Ruby Sapphire cards or Sapphire Steel cards. And so we know about the coils and stuff like that, but are there any cards that you think people are sleeping on or strategies that people may have been missing?
I think I don't remember what podcast I heard it on, but Perla, the new like the one of the mice from Cinderella, the one it's like the yellow green evasive card. I think she's kind of slept on for that archetype. She's really good in the I'm testing a green Fossa deck right now, and she seems pretty good in that. Um, Other than that, I mean, I think just what's the new draw card for purple? It's like, oh, in my opinion, it's a worse uh Amethyst Chromacon.
Oh, it's the draw 3. Everybody draws 3.
Oh,
Yes,
show me more.
yeah, that one. So I, I think every card had like that most people think about has been talked about one way or the other. But again, I think Pearl is kind of a slept on card for that color combo. Um, Rhino maybe for steel, Amber Steel. Be a lot better if you gave them resist instead of just +2. But not every card can be broken, I suppose. Um, well, those are really the only two that I can think of. I guess if you're like into like if you want to play puppies, like the new puppy support seems really good. What is it? The lightning bolt card, I think the dog from the cartoon show or the TV show in the movie.
Thunderbolts.
Thunderbolt.
There you go, Thunderbolt. Yeah, yep. So yeah, I mean he seems also really good, but other than that, that's really, I mean, those might be the 3 cards that I'm like, hey, those would maybe surprise me, but otherwise, I think everybody's pretty much covered the ones that we think are going to be the best ones.
I
Um,
know I know James is gonna say hey hey.
Hey Hey is going to be the best meme deck out there this set.
oh,
You know what? I can buy hey hey with the following setup: Popsicle, Hiram, and then hey. Okay, if you have hire 'em out there to pop the popsicle and pray to the grand illuminary that you get a whole new world, then you're off to the races.
Because if you ramped on 2, you're playing Hiram on 3, right? Or Hey on 3, or no, Hiram on 3 and then Hey on 4. So on turn 4, you have like 10 ink, and you can pop that popsicle and get your 2 cards.
But you're also the one who's always cooking up crazy ideas, James. What do you see any sleeper cards?
Not yet. I think the what is going to happen. I think that some of the cards in this set are going to activate cards in past sets that have been unused, or at least not used to their full potential. So one thing that I think people need to look at, and I think people are looking at, is Prince John's Mirror. Because if you are giving your opponent a bunch of cards back to their hand with Ink Geyser, why wouldn't you then have them discard them all on their next turn?
Mm, clever.
So, I mean, there's things that you can do. And, another thing is, if you have the mirror out and you've Ink Geysered them, why wouldn't you also have an Emerald Chromicon out? Because as they challenge or as they banish your characters, shove those cards back to their hand for them to have to discard them on their next turn if they can't play them, because they don't have enough ink now. So,
The mirror affects you too, right?
no, it's only the opponent.
Oh, okay,
The
that's right.
Geyser affects you, but the
Yeah.
mirror does not. So, I mean, there's ways that the cards in this set are going to help cards in the previous sets, like the puppy deck. All of those puppies from 3 sets ago are now a viable deck that you can build. It's not going to be tier 1, of course. It still doesn't have the speed to keep up with the current meta, but it's going to be a really fun deck. And if you can get a few of those combos to pop off, it's going to be awesome. Or
It's
should I
true.
say it's going to be possum?
But
Yeah, jokes.
Yeah, what you're going to get around here.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So any other cards we can think of that maybe? I mean, honestly, I've seen people talking about it. The Cobra is like an instant add to the Amethyst Steel deck. It's just an amazing card.
yeah.
So that's all that deck needs, really, is just that one extra card, and it's still going to be good. But no. Okay. Last thing. What's your favorite thing about Arcasia's Island so far? Like a specific card, a specific mechanic, the vibe, the art. What is there anything that you just like? This is my jam.
As always, I gotta go with the Enchanted. I haven't. I know a lot of people didn't like the Enchanted from last set. I haven't had an issue with any of the Enchanted. I love all of them. Other than that, I mean, it's the new influx of like beloved movies. Like, I think my wife and I were talking about it on one of our Disney trips about how there hasn't been, this was before Jungle Book got, like Baloo and Bagheera like got announced, but we were like, yeah, there hasn't been a Jungle Book, yet. And I was like, yet. Um, so again, just like them just adding stuff to the catalog of the library of this game just keeps me coming back, honestly. Like they could, if they stopped putting new stuff in, I'd probably just be like, all right, I'm done with this. I'll play, but I don't want to collect or anything. So that's where I'm at on where it resonates with me, I guess.
It's kind of crazy that we don't even have like how many different movies in this yet, and I mean, yeah, we're only 7 sets in, but there are so many things that aren't from Walt Disney Animation that are not in here yet.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a while. We're just gonna have to wait. Like we're getting what is it? Black Cauldron sometime this year. We're getting
Hmm.
Pocahontas, and then sometime next year, probably in about a year and a half, set 13, I think it is. Here comes Pixar.
But where are the 3 caballeros?
I mean, it took us until this set to get Mushu. So with
True,
with
it's
with
true.
10 Mulans in the game already. So I mean, it's just
I
Well,
cannot believe Mushu didn't get an enchanted. I thought he was a lock.
right? Yeah, but
Yeah, Mickey needed like that 14th enchanted, while nobody else needed it, apparently.
telling you, man, data. Disney has so much data. They know if it's 0.001% more popular that they're going to sell that much more Mickeys than Mushus, they're going to be making Mickeys.
So
It's
you're telling me that Tramp is gonna sell more than Mushu?
I
Tramp
mean,
got an
honestly,
enchanted.
honestly, if they thought, I mean, it's not the only deciding factor, but it is one of the factors, and I bet you that they ran some numbers and they're like, yeah, Tramp's really good.
Hmm.
I think also it because like I remember hearing like when the live action Mulan came out, like they put Mushu out of it because it's like I guess and this is what I heard or I read somewhere that like it was like the like people in China found it very like insulting to their culture, and I think that's why a lot of people were like I think that's why it took Mushu so long to get in the game. If again, if you believe what you hear on the internet, which 50-50. So I think maybe that's why like they're trying to minimize the damage. Like maybe like, hey, we have a deal to get Mushu in the game, but we can't give him an enchanted because of reasons. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, I don't
So
I
know
mean,
either.
I would have loved the Mushu enchanted. I think everybody would have, but
so can I give what I'm most excited for about Arcasia's Island? That
absolutely.
is Arcasia. Itself, herself, himself, itself, whatever. I just find this figure so fascinating, mysterious. I want to know, Arcasia's ancient. What have they been up to? What is going on with this island? Um, like I'm really intrigued by the potential story arc of this. And the thing that I like about it is that it's original to Lorcana, and it engages me in a way that I'm sorry, the other Lumineers that we have, Martin and Venturo and Shanzi or whoever, that they just don't engage me that way. But this one, Arcasia, it's got my attention.
And in the original lore from the early sets, there were multiple great Illumineers under the Grand Illumineer who formed the Great Illuminary. And so we now have come across one of them. So are the others out there in the land of Lorcana somewhere,
Are
hiding
they gonna,
away, waiting for the return of the greatness of the Great Illuminary to come back? And where is
this,
the original creator?
this is like the Arceus of Lorcana, huh?
Yes.
All right.
Pokemon G.
All right. So uh Martin, Thomas, thank you for joining us. We've talked about a lot of things. It's been fun. I told James because we were talking about, it'd be fun to have somebody from our Discord on, and we're grateful that you were willing to come on, share your thoughts with us. If people want to find you, obviously you're on the Discords, but where can people find you if they want to find you?
I'm on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. Under it's either Martin Carp or Lorcana Carp. I think you can find me both on there. So there. And then I have a TikTok that is also under the Martin Carp banner. But I have like two videos up because I don't do a lot of like video content. But other than that, like that, those two, and then the Discord. If anybody wants to just send me a friends request or just hit me up on Discord, that's fine. Um, no harm, no foul there. But yeah, those are like the two ways that people can get in touch with me if anybody wants to like get to know me better, pick my brain on anything or anything of the nature. Yeah.
Great. So we do have one listener question from another Discord faithful, Rodian. And Rodian's question is, have you ever intentionally left a specific character out of a deck because you don't like that character, even if including them would undoubtedly make the deck stronger? I can just say straight away, no, I have never done that. Have you guys?
No.
Um, I have never. I wouldn't. I refuse to touch Emerald Steel because of how much I hate Diablo. I think I said that in the server when after Rodian asked the question. So yeah, so I've definitely fallen that line. Like if I were to ever play um I think the start of last set or set 5 or set 6, I built like a fun Robin Hood ping deck. I called it Ping Frizer Done. But I never took it to locals or anything because it was just wasn't good. And I was like, well, the only way to play a good Emerald Steel deck is to play the bird, and I'm not playing the bird. Um,
I was at a set champs, I think, for set 5, and someone had a Robin Hood ping deck at the set champs.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, again, thank you for joining us. I don't believe we have any news, James, do we?
Set 7's coming out this week.
Today,
That's the news.
as of the date this podcast is released, so that's exciting. I will be doing a draft. I'll be up in Idaho with my kids. My son and I are going to a store called Phoenix Fire Games. Our mutual friend Devin is the tournament organizer there, James.
Nice.
And I'm really looking forward to it. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
All right. So if you liked what you heard, you can follow us on YouTube. You can subscribe to us on the podcasting platform of your choice. You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Citizens of Lorcana. And James, where can they find you?
You can find me everywhere online at Dan Regal. And thank you all again for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.